What is up, everybody? Welcome into the Pack a Day Podcast Happy Hour. I am your host, Andy Herman. You can find me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. And of course, the one and only Camille Davis. She's joining me once again for Packers Happy Hour, Pack a Day Happy Hour. Camille, welcome back to the show. How the heck have you been?
I've been good. I cannot complain. The Packers are still playing football, and it is January 19th. So, I'm in great spirits.
What more could you possibly want? I guess other than a Packers 49ers victory, that would be Packers over 49ers victory. That would be nice. But man, if I told anyone beginning of the season, one win away from the NFC Championship, opportunity on Saturday Night Football to go into San Fran and shock the world. Jordan Love's playing at the top of his game. What more could you possibly want? This is freaking amazing.
Yeah, especially after how this season started. And I think that's part of what, makes this so much fun. Right. We went through those frustrations of watching this team have those learning pains of growing. And now they're in a position where they dog walk Dallas. And now they're sitting here going up against San Francisco, a team that we have seen a lot over the last couple of decades here. So I'm here for it. I'm ready for it.
It is an interesting switch of roles where the past 2 weeks, Chicago and Dallas have been Green Bay owns both of those teams. And now it's oh, now we've got to go through the team that has sort of owned us as of late. And that's a little bit less fun, but it also has the opportunity to maybe exercise some demons. And, listen, San Fran was not kryptonite at all for Brett Favre. Brett Favre went right through San Fran most of the time. They were definitely kryptonite for Aaron, but we don't know what's going to happen in this new Jordan Love era. And this team is just playing free. They're playing fast. They're exciting. They're not afraid of anyone. They're playing loose. If there's a team that's ready to go out and shock the world, it's still, to me, this Green Bay Packers team, the same team that did it just a week ago.
Absolutely. They have all the tools to do it. And that's the thing, I've seen people who are upset that the 49ers keep getting picked as the team who people think are going to win this matchup. But just because they're picked, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Packers have no shot at winning. The Packers have a clear path to victory and they have a chance to do it. And that's what makes this so fun. I kept saying I can't wait to see this Packer team next season where they can grow upon what they've been able to build on. But honestly, I've been able to see that in the second half of this season already, the prospects of what can be.
I would much, much, much rather have Green Bay being the team that everyone's picking against than the other way around.
Same.
I think this team is just loving the fact that they are underdogs, that nobody's picking them to win. I think they're thriving in this situation. And for a young team, again, that is ignorance is bliss. I don't think they know any better. I think this is perfect. I think this is exactly what they need.
Couldn't agree more. And we've talked about house money. That's been the phrase thrown out a lot. And there are some people who are hey, house money, don't say that because that seems like we're just happy to be here. But I mentioned it on Carry of the G this week where it's if you gave me $100 and said, go gamble, I'm putting that whole 100 in. I'm not thinking twice about it. I'm going to make a big bet. But if it's my own money, I might be a little bit more frugal with how I spend it. If it's house money, why not go all for it?
Absolutely. And it just feels like that's the way they're playing. Let's start out with Snoop Robbie Rob here, which is a great name. Camille, I'll start with you on this one. Do you want the ball or are you going to defer if Green Bay wins the toss?
In this situation, similar to Dallas, I actually would take the ball. The 49ers are also a team that if you give them a lead and they're able to continue to be able to rely on that run game that is so devastating, as well as mixing the play action, the passing game, it's just a bit harder to take them out of the equation. So if the Packers can get the ball first and start strong, that's something I'm here for. I understand the chance to double up around halftime, but coming out and making a statement, especially as a 9.5 underdog on the road, I'm here for that energy.
I'm with you. If Green Bay gets it, I want them to take the ball and try to emulate what they did against Dallas a week ago. I don't think it's the be all end all though. And what I mean by that is it still matters what happens. If Green Bay gets the ball and they fail and they go 3 and out and San Francisco takes the ball, well, now things are really not looking great. You're off to a really bad start. And same thing, even if you have to kick off, even if you hold San Fran to a field goal, or if you can get them 3 and out, that is a huge opportunity as well. So I don't think it's this, curse of death if you all of a sudden don't get the ball first or whatever. You just have to go out still and play the game. But if it were the choice, I would absolutely take the ball and try to get San Francisco playing from behind early and just maybe try to get Brock into a mistake, just like you got Dak into a mistake a week ago. All right, Richard, how does the 49ers defense compare to Dallas's defense? I'll start with this one. I think the biggest difference that you're going to notice is at the linebacker level. You've got Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. Assuming Greenlaw plays, he's questionable, but it's sort of assumed, I think, that he's going to play at this point. Those guys are attacking, physical, downhill players. They will thump your guards that are pulling into that spot. They will do everything they need to do to make your life a living nightmare. Whereas that Dallas second line of defense and their linebackers were basically safeties playing that spot. Marquise Bell, super undersized. And we saw Green Bay run at those guys all day long. So what it's going to do is it's going to change things as to how you go about running the football. And then they are just super instinctual players as well. So even if you do some of the reverses, jet sweeps, end arounds, they're usually going to be all over that stuff. And they have the speed to fly sideline to sideline. They've got a good secondary. Nick Bosa obviously has the same game wrecking ability that a Micah Parsons does. So there's some similarities, but both teams are a little bit more susceptible against the run. And I think you can run on these teams, but man, Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw make it a whole heck of a lot harder.
They sure do. That's a dynamic linebacker duo. And one thing, too, to point out a difference between the two defenses is that Dallas blitzes a lot more than the 49ers tend to do just on a regular basis. And I believe also that Dallas runs far more man coverage than does the 49ers just in general. So those are two different schematic things just to keep in mind when looking at these two defenses. The way you attack them is going to have to be a bit different. Like, for example, the run game is somewhere where you think that we can absolutely get some licks back on the 49ers. And I agree with that. And it's like you were able to do it in a variety of ways against Dallas, but 49ers are so strong inside. So like if you're looking to run inside, that might not be the best formula right there. So you have to think of different ways to get the ball in Aaron Jones's hand, maybe more outside runs, just trying to scheme it up a little bit differently. But yeah, both defenses are good, but the 49ers defense it's a different animal in my opinion.
Yeah, but here's the good news too. I don't think Green Bay's offense is afraid of anyone at this point.
Yep.
And I think the harder question to answer of like from a 49ers defensive standpoint is how do you stop Green Bay's offense? Because they've shown the ability to run the football with Aaron Jones, who looks like he has like 23-year-old fresh legs at this point, rather than where he's at in his career. So I think that's a huge key to this. But if no matter what you do, Matt Lafleur has shown a propensity to have an answer for everything. And I think he's going to again. I still expect Green Bay to put up points in this game. It's just going to be like which team screws it up, which team shoots themselves in the foot. But if Green Bay is playing their brand of football, they can put up as many points as they need to on this, even though the San Francisco defense is really freaking good. I just think this like good offense beats good defense. And right now the Packers are playing great offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, we got Preston. Thanks for the super chat, Preston. Did I miss the earlier one? Oh, yeah, I got to get Ben's from earlier, but I'll get to you in a second, Ben. Do you think that this win would mean the most to Matt Lafleur out of all the wins he's had in Green Bay? You want to start with this one?
I mean, listen, at this point, it takes you to the NFC Championship game. Like, you want to get there. I think that given the fact that Matt Lafleur hasn't had success against Kyle Shanahan and these 49ers, it'll mean something to him. We know how much of his system is predicated on what Shanahan does as well. So there's a lot of similarities there. So I think it'd be a big win. I'm not sure how he would personally rank all of his different wins that he's had here in Green Bay so far. But I think it would be up there just because he hasn't been able to get that playoff monkey off his back when it comes to the 49ers.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this probably is the biggest. So, you've got obviously a couple playoff wins under his belt that got you to an NFC Championship game where they lost both of those games. But this would be the first time he won 2 playoff games in a postseason. And it would be against San Francisco, 2 road game wins. I think this as a whole would be his biggest moment. And I do think this season has been his most impressive season so far, even though he's had 3 13-win seasons, 2 NFC Championship game appearances. I think getting to the NFC Championship game with this team would be a massive feather in his cap for what he's been able to accomplish this year. So I'll say yes, but I know he wants the big one, right? He wants the Super Bowl win and getting to the Super Bowl, and that's the wins that will ultimately define him. But for now, I would think that this would probably be the biggest win he's had. All right, Ben Stockings, Keyshawn Nixon, kickoff touchdown. He's not going to kick off for a touchdown. He might get a kickoff return for a touchdown, though. We've been trying to speak this. I've been trying to speak a Carrington Valentine pick 6 into existence as well. I did bring up the pick 6 last week of like, maybe this defense is like due for a pick 6 and they got one. So Camille, let's just say maybe Keyshawn Nixon is due for a kick return for a touchdown. And this is the week that he finally busts through and gets it.
I sure do hope so, because he absolutely is due. We saw how dynamic he can be with the ball last season. And I mean, a lot of teams have chosen just not to kick the ball to him. So he hasn't gotten as many opportunities. But with the way that the 49ers special teams is set up, there might be an opportunity for him to be able to take a few out. So I'm hoping for it. I would love to see it because, like you mentioned, with the pick sixes last week, and I'm even thinking that way around sacks this week, where it's like we've gone a while without having a lot of sacks. It would be nice for that to happen in this upcoming game. They tend to come in bunches. So listen, to beat the 49ers, you're going to need a lot of things to go in your favor, and a Keyshawn Nixon touchdown would be something that can go a long way to helping the Packers secure a victory.
Yeah, you just need those little moments, and that obviously are big plays. But whether it is a sack, fumble, a kick return, touchdown, the pick six, like we saw last week, those are the things that have the ability to take a game where you're 9.5-point underdogs and swing it completely in your favor. I do think there's avenues for Green Bay to win without those things, but man, it would go a long way in helping them if they could get any of those things. Matt Freilich, fellow Pack-A-Day podcaster, good to see you, my friend. And yes, hit the subscribe button. And we are closing in on 20K subscriptions on the YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe, like, comment, do all of those amazing things, of course. Kelvin asks, the San Francisco guy said wet conditions haven't been kind to Purdy. Do you think rain would benefit us? I'll take this one first. So I know somebody asked earlier, too, if there's supposed to be weather. The last that I checked, there are supposed to be some rainy conditions in Santa Clara for this game. It does seem like there is going to be some weather that both teams have to deal with. And kind of similarly to what I just said, I think when you're a 9.5-point underdog, the more little unpredictable, chaotic things that you can have in the game, it probably benefits you more than the team that's favored to win. So whether that's, just wet conditions, I talked about on the San Francisco podcast earlier this week, he mentioned that Brock Purdy has not done well in rainy conditions, and it's been an issue for him. You've got two rookie kickers that will have to deal with rainy conditions. You've got a first-year punter in Daniel Whalen, like all of these things. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to benefit Green Bay. But again, I think if you're the underdog and you're the team that needs maybe a couple bounces to go your way, more chaos, probably not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And the thing with the wet conditions, like if it's affecting San Francisco, it's something that the Packers are going to have to work through as well. And the thing that would make me the most nervous about wet conditions with the Packers comes around the special teams and the kicking and that aspect of it. Because if this is a game where, it comes down to a field goal or two, I would hate to see the game decided because, it was a bad snap or whatever happened. The ball comes off the foot the wrong way, whatever it is. But both teams are going to have to deal with those conditions. And hearing that Brock Purdy has had some problems with that, I mean, that bodes well for us. We haven't seen Jordan Love in too many wet conditions or sloppy weather at this point. So we'll have to add some, if that is the case this weekend, which it seems it will be, at least for periods of time, then we're going to see what he can do in these conditions as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, and it definitely could play a major factor in this game. Christy, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Andy, same thing. Fill in the blank. The Packers defense can stop the 49ers offense these three ways. All right. Do you have one off the top of your head, Camille?
The first one that comes to my mind is tackling. You cannot miss tackles against this group. You have to be really, really assignment sure. And that's one thing I noticed during that Dallas game where it's like, hey, we have hats to the ball. Like guys are flying. It is multiple green or yellow helmets around these stars. And I love to see it. They weren't missing. They were wrapping guys up. And when you're playing this 49ers offense, a team that gets yak like crazy, you have got to bring them down when you have an opportunity to do so. Because if you don't, they're going to run all over you. So when I think about what the Packers defense has to do, they have to be assignment sure and they have to wrap guys up and get them down.
Yeah, and I'll just add fundamentals to that, and I'll kind of spread it off in a variety of different ways. You mentioned the tackling, which rallying and tackling to me is super high up on the list in this game. But I think this Packers defense can't go man-to-man with Kittle and Juszczyk and Ayuk and Samuel and McCaffrey and all these guys. They just can't. Like San Francisco just has more talent on offense than Green Bay has on defense. They can't match it person for person. So what you want to do is just make everything as hard as possible. You have to make them earn every inch. And the way that you do that is by playing the most fundamentally sound football that you can possibly imagine. That starts with communication and making sure that everyone's aligned the right way, that all 11 players are focusing on the same thing, that you're not getting players mixed up and you end up with a Deebo Samuel running free in the secondary. You're making sure, like Camille mentioned, that you're rallying and tackling to the football on every single play. And you're just making every blade of grass matter, that the inches, the yards, and the goal of this game, in my opinion, is to not hold like, oh, they held San Francisco to 10 points. No, it's like, can you keep them low enough or in the low to mid 20s that you can give Green Bay's offense a chance to win this game? And if you can keep them in the low to mid 20s, you give them that chance. And if you keep in the low to mid 20s and get a turnover or 2 turnovers, now you really have the opportunity to come away with that win. So it's not necessarily trying to go out and just like punch above your weight. It just is literally doing the small things and making it that it's hard for San Francisco. I think that to me is the big key for this Packers. And it's a lot of what they've been doing these past 3 weeks when they've been playing a better brand of football defensively.
Yeah, and one other thing I'll add to that as well, just thinking about it, is we saw the comments that stirred up a lot of 49ers fans about the Packers giving out bulletin board material by saying, like, if we pressure Purdy, we can make things happen, like Wyatt said. But I think one thing with that is the type of pressure we're talking about. Like, I don't think that blitzing, like we've seen the numbers against the blitz, Brock Purdy is like, he's not wilting against that. Yeah. But if you can find a way to get pressure with your front four, right, and you still have everybody in the secondary, linebackers being able to defend and spy and all that good stuff, like, it puts you in a really good position to be able to win the game. So if the Packers defense can find a way to generate pressure up front without bringing a lot of extra bodies, that's going to go a long way against the 49ers as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it obviously starts with stopping McCaffrey and getting them in some of those third and long situations. And then when they do, like you said, they've got to be able to pressure with 4, be able to cover with 7, and then rally and tackle and make sure that those 5, 6, 7 yard gains don't turn into 50, 60, 70 yard gains, because with McCaffrey, Ayuk, Kittle, all those guys have the ability to break those tackles and make those plays, and you just can't allow them to do it. All right, Vex, Camille always makes me happy. Tell me why the Packers shocked the 49ers. So I think it's a question for you, Camille.
Well, thank you, Vex. That makes me happy. Why the Packers will shock the 49ers? Because Jordan Love in this offense has been rolling. Like, they are looking like a well-oiled machine at this point. And I think what we've seen this offense do isn't a fluke. Like, this is really stuff that they can replicate game after game after game. And we mentioned the fact that the 49ers are a little weak in the run game. Like, that's where you can really attack them. We've seen what Aaron Jones has been able to do the last 4 weeks with this team. Over 100 yards in all those games. He's averaging like 6 yards a carry right now. So, like, if you can lean on the offense and you don't turn the ball over, a clean game, don't get yourself in bad penalties, play a clean game, lean on the offense. And if the defense can show up, like you mentioned, I don't see this defense keeping the 49ers to 10 points or something like that. But we have seen Joe Barry defenses play very well against high level of competition. It's when we're playing the Giants and those Buccaneers and the Panthers where you're like, I don't understand what's happening here. Yep. So the defense can do their job and keep the game within a reasonable grasp. I think the offense can score enough points to win the game.
There is a weird dynamic with Joe Barry, like that he does seem to play his best games or coach his best games or coordinate his best games against the best teams. And I guess that's a really good sign for Green Bay moving forward the rest of the way. And I know it's a different quarterback, but not that we want to dwell too much on the 2021 playoff blunder to the 49ers. The defense was freaking awesome in that game. Like, they shut down San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan led offense. That was an offensive brutal performance for Green Bay in that game. And of course the special teams with the blocked punt return for a touchdown, but Joe Barry's defense owned Kyle Shanahan's offense in that game. So not the same. Brock Purdy's different. They've got a few more weapons, obviously Christian McCaffrey, huge part of it, but listen, like, Joe Barry's had some success against him in the past. Hopefully he can repeat that again this week. All right, Ben, thanks again. If the Packers hold up in pass pro, but can't get any lanes for Aaron Jones, do you think Love can do enough to win the game? I'll start this one and you can follow up, Camille. The first thing I will say is Aaron Jones is so freaking talented that even without running lanes, he has still been getting his. Like, that's legitimately true. Some of these games, I thought these past couple of weeks were better from a run blocking standpoint and opening some alleys and creases for him, especially against Dallas. But even against Minnesota and Carolina, you go back and watch those, there weren't a ton of alleyways or lanes for Aaron Jones, and Aaron Jones still ate in both of those games. So just because the 49ers do their job and what they're supposed to up front, don't limit Aaron Jones just because of that, because the 49ers probably won't be able to. He's been that freaking good. But to the second part of your question, yeah, I do think so. This pass offense is on fire right now. They have all the weapons that they need. They can win in a variety of different ways. It's going to be paramount that you give Jordan time and the ability to step up into the pocket and make some of those throws. The big thing from a trenches standpoint for Green Bay in this one is the pass rush good enough from San Fran where Jordan has to lower his eyes and watch what's going on with the pass rush and not be able to keep his eyes downfield. That's what happened against Detroit in week 4 when Aiden Hutchinson and John Kaminsky, of all people, just kept getting home. And then Jordan had to drop his eyes and watch what was going on up front. And it just changed everything from there. If he's got to drop his eyes, that's what changes it. If they give him time, even if they can't run the ball, Jordan has the ability to pick apart any defense right now.
Absolutely. And that's part of what you saw. Jordan Love has had time in these last few games. Like the Cowboys weren't able to get to him. The Vikings weren't able to do too much damage to him as well. And these are some very highly talented defenses. So Jordan Love, I think, can do enough to win the game. And let's say that Aaron Jones doesn't get the lanes. Like you mentioned, that's part of his genius, right? And that's why we missed him when it was just A.J. Dillon, because he just has the ability to freestyle a bit more and get himself out of jams that you don't think he's able to do. But if they couldn't get him going in the run game, you also can use him in the passing game. And that's what we saw during the last matchup, I believe, against the 49ers, where you can just get the ball in his hands, figure out a different way to scheme the ball into his hands. If the run game's not working, figure out how to get him involved in the passing game as well. Maybe some screens, just get the ball in his hands in some space, put some blockers in front of him and see what he can do.
Totally agreed. Joni, got to make sure we watch CMC with the check down catch with big yards after the catch. Well said. And that's just the dangerousness of Christian McCaffrey, where it can be a 2-yard check down and he can take it 40. It can be a toss play. It can be a draw. It can be anything. And you get the ball in his hands and he just makes magical things happen. But yeah, and that's where Camille was talking about earlier. Rallying and tackling is going to be of the utmost importance, because however you get the ball in his hands, he has the ability to make people miss. And you just got to make sure if you do miss it, somebody's there to clean it up right away. It's not one of those 40, 50-yard gains. All right. Let's see. David, welcome to the chat. I think the special teams performance is going to be key to the game, specifically punting and punt returns. Any thoughts there? I think the short field wins the game. And Jay Western, just to kind of like tag these together perfectly, 2021 was one of the most lopsided special teams performances in history. Forget the block punt. We shanked multiple punts, and the Niners had multiple huge punts with booming coverage. So yes, absolutely think that special teams can play a huge part in this game. What say you, Camille?
Absolutely. And we saw that during Dallas. I made a joke, like everyone was, tweeting about the game and talking about the game. And I'm sitting here like, wow, there's been some really nice punts in this game. Like, yeah, I'm impressed by the punting, but it's absolutely a critical part of the team, right? Special teams is always regulated because it's not as flashy as offense or the defense. You don't see it as often, but it plays such a critical part in that complementary football. If you can continuously pin the 49ers deep, if we do have to punt the ball to them, which I assume we will a time or two, you pin them deep and you give them a long field to work with. You don't want to make it easier for a team and an offense this talented. So absolutely, special teams will have a big part in it when you're thinking about that aspect. And of course, we know the field goal aspect of it as well. Anders, he's missed some field goals so far this season. We know that's well documented. But on the other side, for the 49ers, they've also had some field goals where they're like, how do we miss these? So that's absolutely going to be a critical part, especially in wet conditions.
Yeah, these two rookie kickers will be worth keeping an eye on. I don't think either fan base is going to be super excited anytime they see their kicker coming out, especially if you're down by 3 game on the line. I think both fan bases would be holding their breath pretty much if their field goal kicker was in that situation. So definitely another one to keep an eye on. Ben, thank you so much for becoming a member. Really appreciate that. Hope you enjoy all the new content. Just came out with a new episode yesterday. And of course you get the weekly Q&As as well. So thanks so much for joining. Kelvin, great question here. Has the pass blocking actually been that good? It seems a lot of it is Love moving around, extra back pedals, throwing off his back foot. I feel other quarterbacks would be sacked more with this offensive line. I think there's a level of truth to what you're saying, Kelvin, but I also think the offensive line is doing a tremendous job. I think you have to remember, like, even a great offensive line is going to allow pressures from time to time. Like, you're going against the Micah Parsons and the DeMarcus Lawrences of the world. They're going to win on occasions. And the same thing this week. Like Bosa and Hargrave and Chase Young, they're going to get wins this week. It just is going to happen. But the fact that Jordan has all of those things at his disposal to throw off platform, to backpedal, throw off his back foot, fade away, and still make these ridiculous completions definitely makes things a whole heck of a lot harder. And also Matt Lafleur being in his bag and getting open receivers quickly so that Jordan can get the ball out of his hands, that goes a long way with it as well. So I think the big thing is that the offensive line's been by far good enough, and against the tough matchup against the Cowboys, they were able to win more often than not. But even in the times where Dallas did win, Jordan knew what to do with the ball, how to get rid of it, and how to make plays. And when you have that as a combination, it just makes your day extremely frustrating on defense. And hopefully that's the case against the 49ers as well.
And I definitely do think that other quarterbacks would be sacked more with this offensive line because, again, football is so complimentary. And when you have a quarterback like Jordan Love and what he's shown us so far with that ability to do the extra back paddles, throwing off one back foot, like earlier in the season, I was sitting there and I was like, sometimes I'm like, why? Like, we know you have the arm talent, kid. Like, just hang in the pocket and throw the ball, like deliver it with your feet on the ground. But it's a nice talent to have because things are going to go off script a lot in football. So having the ability to be able to improvise in that way and have the arm strength to get yourself out of those jams, it works out. It works out. While other quarterbacks definitely may have been sacked more with this offensive line, the O-line has been doing a pretty good job over the last few weeks, last half of the season. And when you combine that with Love and his ability as it's grown to check things out pre-snap and make the right adjustments and get into looks that are going to be beneficial against what he's seeing, like it's all working well together.
Yeah, totally agreed. David says Lamar Jackson had some good runs and Love can take some yards with his feet. And then since you added wrestling in for Camille and I as well, I would love to see Jordan Dude Love use his legs if need be. That would open up wide receivers too with the threat of him turning it upfield. Really quick on this, I do think there will be a couple opportunities for Jordan to use his legs in this game, but I also think in an ideal world, he doesn't have to. In an ideal world, he's hitting his drops and finding his receivers and getting it out of his hands and letting his playmakers do the heavy lifting. But in a scenario where he does need to use his legs, he can. He just needs to make sure he's taking care of the ball. We have seen a couple fumbles in those sort of situations for Jordan. But yeah, I think he could. I'll also add on to this of like, yes, Lamar did it. There's only one Lamar in the league right now, and that dude's a lot more special on the ground than anyone else in the league. So while Lamar, yes, had some success, Jordan not quite in that category as a runner, but he can pick up yards when he needs to, and I do think there will be some opportunities for him in this game.
Yeah, he absolutely can. And one thing with Jordan Love, too, is that he's a quarterback who can use his legs, but he tends to try to use his legs to be able to throw the ball. Like there have been times throughout the season where I'm thinking like, oh, he's about to run for it. And instead he still has his eyes upfield and he's looking for who he can deliver the ball to. We saw that even against Dallas on the pass to Tucker Kraft, where it's like, oh, I think he has the edge here. He can get on the outside. He can get the first down, but nope. A dime right to Tucker Kraft. So I think his legs are a weapon in a few different ways. And when you pair it with the way that he sees the field, like it's fun. It's special. Like we saw a young Aaron Rodgers use his legs a lot when he was younger. And as he got older, that mobility decreased for him, which is what you expect as quarterbacks age. So to be able to have a guy again back in the lineup who can move around with his legs, it does open things up for you, even if it's just the threat of him being able to take off and run.
And that's exactly what you want out of your quarterback. You want them to buy time to be able to throw, and running should be the last resort for a variety of different reasons. Some of it, the ball security, some of it so that they don't get big hits, and some of it so that, again, you're putting your heavy lifting on the playmakers. But I love the way that Jordan plays quarterback. I love that it's his last resort. And I love that when he is looking to run, it's still with his eyes downfield and staying behind the line of scrimmage so he can hit some of those big plays. So I love what he's doing. Christy has a great question here. If the Packers win, who would be your guess who had an MVP performance on the defensive side of the ball? I would go with someone like Rashawn Gary or Kenny Clark, somebody that just wrecked shop up front, maybe less likely, but a Devontae Wyatt or a Preston Smith, just somebody who not only performed well against the run, but had a couple sacks, maybe a sack fumble recovery. I think this is a game, as Mike Wall mentioned yesterday, is going to be one in the trenches. And while certainly a pick six by a Jair or a Savage or someone like that could go a long way again, I think it's going to start with pressure and stopping the run up front. And that's going to take an MVP performance from someone like Kenny, Rashawn, Preston, etc.
Absolutely. I was going to say Gary if I had to just pick one name. And it's part of what we talked about a little bit earlier, where it's like you want to get pressure on the 49ers, but you just don't want to rely on bringing extra bodies to do that. So if the Packers win, I'm assuming they were able to also get pressure up front, rushing for. And I would think that Gary would be one of those guys who can really show up in this game. It could be Preston Smith. It could be Wyatt. We'll have to see how that works out. But I would think that it would be somebody on that defensive line who would get that MVP, unless the secondary happens to get really sticky hands and there's a lot of interceptions going on in that way.
Metal Fingers says, whoa, Camille and Packaday, what a matchup of my favorite podcasts. Metal, thanks so much for joining. Appreciate that. Jibby Jabs, if we beat the 49ers, is there a team we're scared of the rest of the way in the playoffs? Camille, go ahead.
Listen, if the Packers beat the 49ers, there's not a team I'm scared of in the NFC at that point. Like the only other fear would be like, okay, the Ravens, and that's making the Super Bowl and playing against the Ravens if they handle the AFC. So like I've made a joke and I was like, if the Packers find a way to beat the 49ers, I might just start saying like, hey, Super Bowl for this particular squad, because there's no one else that's left that really puts any fear in me the way that the Niners do, because I felt throughout the season that the Niners have been the best team in the NFC on a consistent basis. Like they operate like a juggernaut for the most part. And what makes that team so special is that they have a defense that will keep you under 20. And they have an offense with so many dynamic skill position players, as well as a quarterback who can deliver it on time and doesn't make too many mistakes. So when you have a team that plays so fundamentally well, it's hard to beat. So if they do beat them, like I'm not scared of anybody else outside of the Ravens.
Yeah, I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth on this one. So the first thing I will say is if they beat the 49ers, there will absolutely not be anyone that they are afraid of or scared of the rest of the playoffs. They will go into every single game feeling that they can win and feeling that it's their season to win. That being said, I still think they can lose to anyone at the same token. Like if it's Tampa, if it's Detroit in the NFC Championship game, I've seen people be like, oh, if they beat San Francisco, they're just going to like go to or win the Super Bowl. I'm like, both of those teams are really freaking good teams, and Tampa just beat them in December, like in Green Bay. Like, I think both of them in Detroit, obviously they went 1-1 this season, but Detroit beat them in Green Bay earlier this season. So, and it would also be very like Packers fashion to like beat Dallas, beat San Francisco, and then like lose to Tampa. Like that would just be the most Packers thing ever as well. I'm not speaking it into existence, but I do think both of those games would still be, or whatever one it would be really tough. And then same thing in the Super Bowl. Like Houston's probably your best bet, but like all of those games would be ridiculously difficult. And with all of those teams would be playing their best football of the season, would be coming off a bunch of wins too. So they're not going to be afraid of anyone, and they can beat anyone. But I still think all of those games are really tough and would be challenging regardless of who they play. So yeah, that's where I'll put it in the ether at that point. All right. Justin, thanks so much for the super chat. I'm late here today. Defense showing up and coaches outsmarting each other worries me. Your thoughts with, I'm assuming that means Matt Lafleur. Go Pack, go, and thanks, guys. I'll do this, just say really quick. Right now, I have the confidence of 10,000 suns in Matt Lafleur. Like, I have no doubt that he's going to have a great game plan. I don't think there's much to overthink from like a personnel standpoint in this game. They have their offense basically set. Don't give Dylan too much if like he is back in this game. Like don't like still feed Aaron Jones. I suppose that's one way where they could overthink it. I'm sure there's some strategy things that they could overthink, but Matt LaFleur's been great. I have a ton of faith in what he's going to do, and I think he's going to keep coaching great into this game.
Absolutely. I don't have anything else. You answered that one perfectly, Andy. At this point, like the Packers know what they do well. And I think they're going to try to lean on that. And they're going to get the film and see ways that they can try to exploit what the 49ers do. But like they just have to play their game. So I hope that it's not a situation where he's trying to think too hard about it. Like just go out there and play your game, because you've already shown what this team can do and how you can scheme this up. So I'm with you on that one, Andy.
All right. Steven says we need to stay the course and win the turnover battle. I'll absolutely take that. There's somebody who asked about Bosa earlier. See if I can find that really quick. But basically the question was, what do you need to do to stop Nick Bosa? And I don't know why I can't find it, but either way, I think the answer here is very similarly to what you did against Micah Parsons a week ago. And yeah, Mr. Bambino here says Aaron Jones had a beautiful pickup block on Parsons. He had two beautiful pickup blocks on Parsons, actually. And what they did against Parsons is a variety of different things. They, first of all, in a lot of pass situations, they got the ball out of Jordan's hands as quickly as they could, which allowed, Parsons the inability to get to the quarterback. They also ran the ball a ton. Like Jordan only had 21 dropbacks in the entire game, which makes it far more difficult when you're completely off balance and not sure what play is going to come next. They did a lot of max protect. As we just mentioned, Aaron Jones had a couple beautiful blitz pickups and just pickups of Parsons as he won one play on John Runyon Jr. Or sorry, it was Sean Ryan. He beat immediately, and Jones was there to pick him up. So it's just all of those things. Sometimes it's going to be Tucker Kraft chipping or Musgrave. Sometimes it's going to be a running back staying in, a max protect, doubling it, whatever it might be. You just have to throw different things at him and just let him never get comfortable in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I do love with the emergence of Tucker Kraft and now Musgrave coming back into the game is just how often you're seeing the Packers run 2 tight end sets. And with that, you get the extra blocking help for sure, but they're also still a threat in the passing game because both have shown the ability to make plays in that way as well. So you got to be assignment sure. And if you need help, like you have to make sure that you're picking up on your proper assignments. You can't whiff. You have to be assignment sure. So that's going to be a key into trying to limit what Nick Bosa can do because he's a game wrecker, as we all know. And also, if the Packers can continue to keep the game close, where you can continue to have a nice mix between your running and your passing and some play action plays, that's going to do a good job as well as trying to keep Bosa off balance. Because if you're in a situation where he knows it's going to have to be a passing down consistently, he's going to pin his ears back and get to work. So you want to try to avoid that.
Yeah, Tyler asks, bigger threat, Nick Bosa or Javon Hargrave? I think Bosa is always the bigger threat, but Hargrave versus Josh Myers does give me some concern in this game as well, but I'll always pick Nick Bosa in that conversation.
Same here.
Let's see. Lime says 34 minutes late, but I'm here. Welcome, Lime Volcano. That's a great name. Welcome to the chat. Ryan asks, does Ja shadow Ayuk if he plays? I don't think that he completely shadows him through the course of the game, but I do think he would be the primary defender on Ayuk the majority of the game. And it's not like San Francisco doesn't have other weapons that they can exploit and other ones that Ja might need to try to shut down. But I do think the matchup with Ayuk and Ja is a great one. And I do think you see that matchup if Ja's out there. And that's the one player that, like, I think you can sort of keep everything else intermediate and rally and tackle to it, but Ayuk's the big play weapon, and that's the one that you really got to make sure it doesn't get loose downfield, and having Ja on him, I think, could go a long way and hopefully limiting some of those explosive plays.
Yeah, because that man is absolutely dynamite when it comes to running routes. Like, he's not super fast, like he has some speed to him, but the way that he runs those routes, he is a very tough cover. And I would not encourage anyone to try to just check him one-on-one at any point throughout the game. But having Ja in the area, of course, we know what Ja can do. He's one of the highest paid cornerbacks for a reason. When he's healthy, we know what he can do. But you're going to need some help on Brandon Ayuk. But one thing that does make me think of is just the defense matching up, because of how the 49ers offense can really spread you out. We've seen situations in the season where Preston Smith ends up on running backs or slot guys, and you're like, that's not ideal. And this is another game where that's not ideal if you continuously to see like Quay Walker on CMC or whatever the case may be. So the matchups and what personnel the Packers run out to match the 49ers is something else that's going to be really interesting for me to see.
Yeah, we'll stay on the Ja train here. Will Ja play versus San Francisco? How much worse are we without him? I didn't think Ja would sit versus Dallas, and I think he will be there for San Francisco. Greg, we don't know at this point if he's going to play or not. I think I agree with your final point that he will do everything in his power to be out there. And Joe Barry mentioned earlier this week that he's more ahead, although we have heard Matt Lafleur say that they've used some gamesmanship in the past. So maybe they want the 49ers to think Ja's going to play, and they're just messing with all of us. Who the heck knows? He did not practice this week, which is never a really great sign. We're obviously, to your second part of the question, they're definitely worse without him. And against Ayuk and Samuel and those guys, he would be huge to have out there. I think the one thing that gives you some confidence, the 3-game win streak that they had in the middle of the season against the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Lions, that was all Valentine, and Nixon, the same 3 that you would see in this game if Green Bay did not have Jair Alexander. So they've been able to go out and win with those trio of corners. And if they need to again, they've shown they can do it. And you hopefully have some confidence that they could do it again.
You definitely do. And one thing that does make me nervous coming into this game is just thinking about how much this defense played last week against Dallas. And then it's a short week for them. at least last week, Ja had an extra day to try to get himself ready for the game. This week, we play tomorrow. It's a Saturday game, so we'll have to see. And Andy already said, like, we are a bit worse without him, but I do have faith in the corners that we have on this team. But it's going to be a lot for this defense. Like, they're coming in with some heavy legs. They played a lot of snaps against Dallas last week, and they're coming on a short week. So it'll be interesting to see with San Francisco coming in off of 2 weeks of rest, pretty much, since they were able to sit some of their starters in week 18 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Laika says, wasn't it all light practice this week? The Thursday practice was a little bit more intensive, but it was mostly walkthroughs. And then Thursday had a lighter practice, but it was mostly not any crazy like padded practices or anything like that this week. All right. Richard asks, is there a scenario where this could actually be a low scoring game? What do you think, Camille?
It could. Sure. There's a scenario where that could happen, especially with the weather. If the rain is a bit heavier than they're thinking, because the last forecast that I heard was saying like, hey, it might rain a little bit at the beginning, might rain a bit at the end, but there might be a dry spell during the game at some point as well. So at this point, if it's consistent rain throughout the game, or if it's heavier than expected and it becomes a very muddy field, a muddy game, hard to, hold on to the ball, then it could become a more lower scoring game. But these are two pretty good offenses here, some of the best in the NFL. So I will lean more to it being a higher scoring affair, but I think there's a chance for it to be a low scoring affair.
I think one of the things I'm such a true believer in when it comes to sports is that, yes, there's this historical data and trending data, but and Matt Lafleur talks about this sometimes too, but like each game is its like own individual journey and anything can happen in that individual game. And just when you think it's going to be like these two high scoring offenses and it's going to be, 42-41, all of a sudden you look at the end score and it was like 13-10 or something. And, both defenses are going to be hyped up and super alert because of how great these offenses have been playing. And sometimes they overcompensate and they play their best football of the season. And all of a sudden the offenses are struggling to get points and it ends up being a totally different game. You add weather on top of that and who the heck knows what could happen. So while I don't necessarily expect it to be like teens versus teens when it's, in the final, like 17-16 or something like that, I do think this could be like a 23-21 game. And I think that would still be fairly low scoring, all things considered. So I definitely think there's some opportunities there. New York Cheesehead, who does the weather favor, us or them? We talked about this a little bit earlier. I don't think it necessarily favors. I don't think it's picking sides here, but I will say, I do think if you're the underdog, you want a little bit more chaos and spontaneity and unpredictability added into the game. Just probably gives you a few more opportunities for the ball to bounce your way. But the team that handles it better is going to be the one that is ultimately going to be in a better position for success.
Yeah, absolutely. Both teams have to deal with the conditions. So it's on which team can handle it the best.
All right, Costas, I'm assuming this is Giannis's brother. What is the chance the 49ers come out flat after not having played football for 3 weeks? I don't know. What do you think, Camille?
Rest versus rust. Which one will it be? I mean, it's been a big conversation for years when it comes to getting your team ready for the playoffs. What do you do? Do you rest bodies or do you continue to play to keep the momentum rolling? Now, as a fan of the Packers, I would love for the 49ers to come out flat after not having played football over the last couple of weeks. But that seems like it might be optimism to the point of foolishness. Like, this is a well-coached team. This is a team that has something to prove. Like last year, think about how the playoffs ended for them. Purdy gets hurt and the defense is able to still keep the game respectable, but they just don't have enough offensively to keep going. Like, that's something that's absolutely fueling this team. They want to get to the big dance. They've been favored throughout the season. This is what they're playing for. I wouldn't bank on them coming out flat. It's a chance. And like I said, I hope they do. I would love for them to do that. But I think they're going to be ready to go and up for the moment.
I do think there is a possibility when you don't play the previous week and you rest your starters the week before that, and there's been this big layoff. I do think there's just like sometimes the rhythm and timing can just be a little bit off. Now, Shanahan's so freaking good at this. Like, I have a feeling he's going to have stuff drawn up for the Strawberry defense that's going to allow Purdy to get into easy looks. I've talked about it all week. I am deathly afraid of what he's going to do with their base personnel and how Green Bay tries to counter it, because they go heavy and they're just going to spread Green Bay out and throw it against Quay or Devondre or Preston Smith or whoever, whatever matchup they get that's favorable. And if they go light, I think San Francisco is just going to run it right down Green Bay's throat. And you're going to be looking at another, hopefully not, but like potential 200-yard performance on the ground. So I don't envy Joe Barry this week. I don't think there's a great answer to what the 49ers have. That's where I went back to earlier of like, you just have to do all the fundamental stuff as best as possible and just try to limit them as much as possible. But man, if the 49ers want to come out and not be as crisp as they normally would be, sign me the hell up and I will absolutely take that gift and not look the other way.
Yep.
All right. Adam asks, which wide receiver will have the breakout game this week?
You can just roll a dice.
Yeah, seriously. Just put it in a random number generator and just say, all right, this week it's this one. You know what? I'm gonna say Christian Watson. I'm gonna say it's a Christian Watson week. He's off the injury report from like a questionable sort of standpoint. He's good to go. I think they're gonna make it so that he gets some opportunities down the field. He needs to come up with them. But I think this could be a Christian Watson game, and he really kind of changes the dynamic of how Green Bay gets some big plays in this game. So I'm gonna roll those dice, and I'm gonna say Christian Watson.
Yeah, I do think the deep ball is an interesting thing to consider when trying to play against this 49ers defense because of all that they do so well. I do think that you can get them on a couple of those deep balls, especially if you get one-on-one coverage. And I saw someone in the comments mention the fact that when we played them last, we were without MVS. And we've seen MVS in Kansas City and all of that, but the vertical threat that he brings to what he brought to the offense was so big at that time. And that's something that Christian Watson can do, but Christian can catch a bit better at this point than what MVS was giving. So Christian Watson is absolutely a great option to think, but I think it's going to be Jayden Reed. If I had to pick one, especially after him having no catches against Dallas last week, I can see it being Reed.
Here's my better answer. I don't care as long as they all play well and they keep doing what they're doing. I don't care if it's, and I don't think they care either from the sounds of it. Don't care if it's Watson, Reed, Wicks. It doesn't matter. Like all of them are capable. We've seen all of them play really, really well. And I'm just excited to see which one of them does step up. Could be Musgrave, could be Kraft, who the heck knows, but they've got a ton of options. All right. Fading West, thanks for the super chat. Bears ownership had transferred. He beat Dallas in the playoffs. Lama is becoming the bad man Stephen A has known to speak of. Yep. Now it's 49ers time. And again, this team that has owned the Packers as of late, almost 10-point underdogs on the road. This is just another test. And I'm loving this Saturday slate of games because you've got CJ Stroud and this super fun playmaking quarterback in Houston against this dominant Baltimore team. And you've got Jordan Love and this super fun playmaking quarterback and offense in Green Bay against this dominant 49ers team. Let's see what you guys got. You might be the future of the league,
yep.
But is the future now? Can you beat the two best teams in the NFL? We'll find out, but I'm so excited for Saturday football.
Gosh, it's going to be a fun slate of games this weekend. And it's so interesting thinking about that bad man, Aaron Rodgers, because the Cowboys were nothing for Rodgers, right? Cowboys is a team that Rodgers and the Packers were able to beat a lot while he was the quarterback. But the 49ers, they just posed like it was just a dilemma Packers couldn't solve with Rodgers at the helm. 0-4 with Rodgers as quarterback against the 49ers. Meanwhile, Brett Favre was 4-1. So it'll be interesting to see how Jordan Love kicks off his, appearance against the 49ers in the playoffs. This is going to be the 10th time that these two teams have met in the playoffs, and that starts in the 90s. So I say that like that's not that long ago because of my age, but I'm like, oh yeah, the 90s, like it wasn't that long ago. But hey, at this point, like it's gonna be on Love to see what he does with his legacy against this team as well. He's already beaten Dallas, so what can you do against the 49ers?
The angry casual fan who doesn't seem so angry says Camille knows ball, make her full time. Andy, angry casual fan, you are going to be seeing more of Camille. I promise you that. So we are working through the minutia and details of that, but that is definitely something that's going to happen. So buckle in. It's going to be all Camille all the time moving forward. Let's see what else we got here. Playoff football is the best. Agree with you there. Think Vegas is going to lose their butt again. I'm all for it. Oh, here we go. Josh is currently on his flight to San Fran to see the game tomorrow. After listening to the Mike Wall episode, I feel like most feel we are for sure losing. Give me some hope we're going to be in this. Josh, there's plenty of reason to be optimistic. You have a quarterback that over the second half of the season has arguably been the best player in football. You have a plethora of offensive weapons that I don't think any defensive backfield can match up with appropriately. You have Aaron Jones playing some of the best football of his entire career. You have an offensive line that's playing their butt off. And you have a defense that's played their best 3 games of the season, arguably over these past 3 weeks. It's not easy. I think San Francisco has more avenues to success in this game. If you were to play this game 100 times, I think San Francisco wins the majority of them, but all you need is that one. And I'm hoping that that one is coming this Saturday, and Green Bay has plenty of opportunities to make their presence known. And there's plenty of avenues where Green Bay can win this game.
Andy summed it up perfectly. I'm wearing a Groot t-shirt. So in my Marvel bag. So I'm thinking about like that one possible like that. We just need the one situation. And it's any given Sunday. That's what I think of a lot with football. And that's why the NFL playoffs are such a different beast than what the NBA can bring you, because NBA, you get the 7-game series, right? Generally, the best team is going to win a majority of those times because you're just playing each other so many times. But in the NFL, it's one game. What can you do in this one game? If you're not showing up playing your best ball in the one game, then you're probably going to lose that game. And that's an opportunity that the Packers have this week. Again, they've been in playoff mode for the last few weeks because they had to win at the end of the season to get in the first place. And you have a San Francisco team coming off a bye week, coming off rest in week 18. We'll see how they look coming out, but there's a chance for them to win. I don't fault anybody for choosing the 49ers to win in this game. It makes sense on paper. Of course, yes, they're the favorites for a reason, but just because they're the favorites doesn't mean that they're infallible. Like, there's a way for the Packers to win.
It's why you play the games. All right, a couple more guys, and we're going to get out of here. Ryan asked if is Reed in the backfield ever coming. It would not surprise me if we saw a little bit of Jaden Reed in the backfield this week. Maybe an angle route against a Fred Warner, a Dre Greenlaw, or something like that. Could absolutely see something like that happening. Yes, did absolutely hear the Go Pack Go chants in Jerry World. That was a ton of fun. Let's see. Dallas was afraid to go man-to-man defense. They probably were, but like, here's the thing. Every defense should be afraid of playing any defense against Green Bay right now. We've seen it. Like, Green Bay's played blitz heavy teams. They've played man teams. They've played zone teams. They've played every style of defense, and they have answers for all of it. So I don't know that there is a great option for any defense going against this Packers offense right now.
Yeah, especially the way that they spread the ball out. Like, there's no truth. Like, who are you focusing on? If you are playing man-to-man, if you want to cut, like, have like double somebody, you want to shadow somebody, who are you going to put that extra attention on? Because Jordan Love's going to get that ball out to whoever is open. So you can try it if you want to, but Love seems to have enough experience now where nothing seems to throw him off his P's and Q's.
Mr. Mikey, I don't know. Are you proposing like a triple threat match here for the Super Bowl? Are you going to do like a ladder match? Because like, just put like all the teams in the field and let's see who wins the ladder match at that point. Not sure how that would work, but a 3-game Super Bowl play. I thought you meant a 3-team. All right, now it makes more sense. But like, no, I just need one Super Bowl. I don't need a 3-game series for the Super Bowl. They play enough football. I'm good with where we're at. 3-team would be great though. All right, maybe 1 or 2 more here. Time to flip the script. The Packers D-line, time to dominate. Love that.
Hope so.
Matt asks, and we'll maybe end with this one. Did you expect Aaron Jones to be this much of an upgrade from Dillon? It's night and day with how much better Jones is.
Yeah, I did. And it's not a slight against A.J. Dillon. I do think that we saw last season A.J. Dillon did not have the season that he wanted to have, and he started this season off slow as well. Aaron Jones goes down, and it's more Dillon. And I feel like as the season went on, we saw Dillon improving with what he can do. But as soon as you saw Aaron Jones come back into that lineup, you understood exactly why Aaron Jones is the lead back for this team. Because even if the blocking isn't good, if someone misses their assignment, he is so shifty and so quick with such great balance that he can still make something out of nothing if opportunity presents itself. Like, as good as Dillon can be in that, that straight line, that power back role, it's something about having that shifty guy who can be really quick. And I think that with this offense leaning more towards that speed route with some of their skill position players, Jones he's a better fit for what this team can do. And yeah, definitely think that didn't surprise me to see that he was playing better than A.J. Dillon.
Same. Dillon's a running back that needs the right situation, circumstances, and to be really successful is how I would put it. And as you just mentioned, Camille, Aaron Jones doesn't need everything to be perfect in front of him, and he can still make magic happen. And just like, you go back and you watch the tape on Jones, and he is just darting across the field. And it's just like quick cutbacks and quick jab steps. And just like everything he does is quick and with purpose and with great vision. And even when, again, the defense does everything right, it still might end up being wrong. Like, he can make you wrong even when you're right. And that's just so much different, where Dillon, there's times where things are right and it still doesn't necessarily result in a big play. And having somebody that can make those big plays and just keep the defense totally off guard and need to drop that extra safety into the body, changes everything. So not surprised and super excited about the way he is playing, of course. All right, everyone. I think that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much, Mr. Bambino. Shout out to Packaday and Camille. Really appreciate your time and feedback. Appreciate you as well. Camille, tell all the amazing people where they can find all of your amazing work.
For sure. So if you want more football takes from your girl over here, you can catch me on Cheesehead TV. I do carry the G and MKE once a week with Aaron Nagler. So we got that going on. Also have the Technical Foul podcast, which is the podcast that I run with three of my closest friends, TECKNICAL. We cover NFL, NBA, and pro wrestling. So if you're a wrestling fan as well, tap in for that. And then you can catch me Monday through Friday on Locked On Bucks, covering all things Milwaukee Bucks basketball. We record our Friday episode live on YouTube, and then we will be back on Monday to start the week off again.
Before I let you go, DeJounte Murray to the Bucks. Is it happening? Can I mark it in permanent marker? What's going to happen?
Listen, I'll put it this way. I don't see the assets that the Bucks would have to pull off this deal, but I also didn't think the Bucks were going to be able to get Damian Lillard. I didn't think they would be able to get PJ Tucker for a DJ, and like I didn't see it. I didn't see it happening. So I trust in John Horst to make something happen. I think the Bucks will do something. If it's DeJounte Murray, I'm not sure about that, but we'll see.
If it's Murray, just build the John Horst statue now. I'll put it that way. But
right now.
Exactly now. Should be fun. NBA trade deadline coming up. But of course, more importantly, we've got a Packers game on Saturday night that we cannot wait for. Again, you can find her on Twitter or X at Camille Monet. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. That is going to do it for us today. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.